Kitty on the.
Kitty was there.
Yeah.
Together. I think that there was no sound on that last part, so while we're waiting for Kitty, if maybe you could just read.
Yes. I'm sorry,
Thank you.
I'm here now. I had technical problems as well as you. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Are you ready for my little spiel?
Yes, we are.
Okay. Good morning, everyone, and welcome. It's required that. Hang on. Sorry, I was listening to the website trying to find out if you were started or not. Good morning, everyone, and welcome. It is required that I make a few statements and then I will explain the hearing procedures. This electronic hearing is being held in accordance with Section 238 of the Municipal Act 2001 due to the COVID-19 pandemic. The members of the Committee of Adjustment present are Alan Edwards, Barb Bridgman, Ruth Ann Brown, Lisa Grogan Green, Joe Quinn, and Sean Stokes, and I'm looking to confirm the attendance. We have a quorum. I can also confirm that senior staff and planning staff are present. Public input on this August 14th, 2023 agenda was invited at the following email address, planning@muskokalakes.ca. Now I will explain the hearing process. The planner will provide an explanation and purpose of the application, the date the notice was circulated, and planning staff's comments. All internal and external submissions have been provided to committee members by Friday, August the 11th, 2023. The planner will present any submission received after that date. The committee will then hear from the applicant or the applicant's agent if they wish to add any information or to substantiate their proposal. Please provide your name, mailing address, and postal code for our records. The committee will hear from those in support of the application or those in opposition to the application. Again, please provide your name, mailing address, and postal code for our records. Presentations are limited to 5 minutes unless otherwise permitted by the committee. If you're here to speak on an application, please wait to raise your hand in Zoom until the planner presents the relevant application. The committee will then hear from the applicant or the applicant's agent to respond to any questions or concerns raised. The committee will then have the opportunity to ask questions. The committee will debate the application and make a decision based on the information presented at the hearing. Please note that the effect of written and oral submissions on decisions for consent and minor variances and the reasons for minor variance decisions are both required under the Planning Act, and motions are pre-populated with standard wording. However, the committee may decide to add reasons and/or effects to the standard wording after voting on a decision. Motions have also been pre-populated with random movers and seconders to expedite the meeting. The motions are automatically written in the positive to assist in completing decisions, as opposed to writing out each resolution. This does not in any way mean an application is going to be approved. When it is time to vote, members shall physically raise their hand until the chair has confirmed the vote. If the vote is unclear, a verbal vote shall be recorded. This is not considered a recorded vote. It must be noted that the chair has a vote on each application and can participate in the discussion. There is a 20-day appeal period from the date of the decision. Building permits are not available until after the appeal period and if no appeals are received. And lastly, please take down the pink notice signs that were posted on your property to advertise today's meeting. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And the first application is B 2623ML, and that's Ms. Crowder.
Thank you, Chair Edwards. Good morning, members of committee. The first application to be heard is consent application B 2623ML in the names of Majaina and Seaward. The subject lands do not have a municipally assigned address. We're just going to wait for the presentation to get queued up here. Sorry about that. So the first application to be heard is consent application B2623ML in the names of Majaina and Seaward. The subject lands do not have a municipally assigned address. Next slide, please. I would direct committee's attention to the submitted site plan on page 28 of the agenda package. The purpose and effect of the application is to sever a portion of land and to add the severed lot to an abutting lot. Notice of this public hearing under the Planning Act was circulated 21 days in advance of this meeting, and 5 submissions have been received to date. Next slide, please. Comments were received from the District Municipality of Muskoka, Hydro One, the Township's Public Works Department, and the Township's Development Services Division, all stating no objection to the application. Following the circulation of comments to committee, comments were received from Nick Snyder, the Township's Chief Building Official, stating no objection. Staff have prepared a detailed report for committee's consideration and have recommended that the application be approved, subject to the removal of the as-built portion of dock. Staff have no further comments at this time and are happy to answer any questions from committee. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Crowder. Is the applicant or applicant's agent here wishing to speak on this? I believe we have Mr. Fauner.
The applicant.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
And not him, he's not. So my hands in there, ready? Yes. I think he's waiting for you to ask him to speak.
Okay, go ahead and speak, please. And if you could turn your video on, that would be great, and your sound.
Can you do that, please?
Sure. Our sound is on. We don't know how to do the video. Try and speak.
Hello there. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, this is Dan Majaina here. I can't figure out how to put the video on, but
Well, that's okay. If we have your name, address, and postal code, please.
sure. It's Dan Majaina. It's 427 Rossmore Boulevard in Burlington. L7N like in Nancy, 1R9.
Okay, thank you. And what would you like to say?
Oh, we actually had no comments.
Okay. That's good. Is there anyone else here wishing to speak in support of this application? Anyone to speak in opposition to this application? No, are there questions from the members? Yes.
Just more clarity. Normally when there's a lot being added to, it's referred to as a lot addition, I believe, as opposed to a severed lot. And I just wondered why technically that is being brought forward this way.
Yes. Go
Through
ahead, Ms.
you,
Brown.
Chair Edwards. That's a great question. So the consent sketch, I'm just pulling it up here. So we're speaking about the portion of land that's being removed from the retained lot. We're referring to that as the severed, and then the lot that is gaining those lands as the benefiting. So it's just a way to distinguish between the lands being removed from that parent retained lot and being added to the lot below the benefiting. So typically in our lot addition applications, we'll have retained, severed, and benefiting.
Any other questions? Seeing none. Moved by member Grogan Green, second by member Stokes. Be it resolved that consent be granted for application B 2623 ML Majaina and Seaward, provided the following conditions are fulfilled. 1, a satisfactory registrable description deed of the separate lot along with any required right-of-ways or easements be submitted to the township along with a registered copy of the reference plan. 2, that a legal undertaking be submitted to confirm that the separate lot will merge in title to the benefiting lot upon registration of the transfer/deeds, which may include canceling consent if necessary. 3, that confirmation be received that the township is satisfied that the retained and severed lots are satisfactory for on-site sewage disposal, that any problems identified with the existing sewage system be corrected, that a satisfactory built dock addition be removed or brought into compliance with applicable zoning requirements. Any questions or comments? All those in favor? And that is carried. And the next application is A 2323 Gould, and that's Ms. Crowder again.
Thank you, Chair Edwards. The next application to be heard is minor variance application A 2323 in the name of Gould. The subject lands are known municipally as 170-R60 Tobin's Island. Next slide, please. I would direct the committee's attention to the submitted site plans on pages 42 and 43 of the agenda package. The purpose and effect of the application is to construct a new access dock. Notice of this public hearing under the Planning Act was circulated 14 days in advance of this meeting, and 2 submissions have been received to date. Next slide, please. Comments have been received from Tim Sopko, the Township's Public Works Technician, stating no objection to the application. Following the circulation of comments to committee, comments were received from Nick Snyder, the Township's Chief Building Official, stating that a demolition permit is required to be issued, inspected, and a final certificate issued for the as-built dock addition prior to the issuance of the new dock permit. Next slide, please. Staff have prepared a detailed report for committee's consideration and have recommended that the application be approved, subject to the removal of the easterly as-built dock addition. Staff have no further comments at this time and are happy to answer any questions from committee. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is the applicant or applicant's agent here wishing to speak on this? Yes.
Hi, Kim Gould, spouse of the owner of the property.
Okay. And your postal code and mailing address?
5 Forest Glen Crescent, Toronto, M4N2E7.
Thank you. Okay, what would you like to say?
I'm here to answer any questions that you might have.
Okay, is there anyone else wishing to speak on this application in support? Anyone to wish to speak in opposition to this application? No? Other questions from the members? Yes.
Thank you. Mrs. Gould, I'm having some difficulty understanding the reasoning for this dock. It's to create easier access for groceries, but it looks to me like it's 71 feet from your house and your current dock is 52 feet. So I don't understand the reasoning for it.
Well, we built our cottage 20 years ago. We're 20 years older. In order to get from our current dock, all our groceries and luggage and all that sort of thing, we have to cross the dock and go up a series of stone steps and pathways till we get to the cottage. With this other dock, it's basically for mobility because my husband has a bad back and a bad knee, and as do I. And we will be able to dock at that new dock. It's strictly for loading purposes and load all our whatever we're taking to the cottage into a small utility vehicle and drive to the back of the cottage rather than hauling it up the stairs. And it's the only way to do it to avoid any stairs.
No, that makes sense. I just wondered what it was. So thank you.
Okay, are there any other questions? Seeing none. Moved by member Brown, second by member Grogan Green. Be it resolved that application A 2323 Gould to construct a new dock is hereby approved with the following variance being granted. One, to permit a maximum cumulative dock width of 85 feet. This variance is granted as shown on the plan attached to the notice of decision and is subject to the following condition: that the easterly as-built portion of the dock be removed as intended. This approval shall remain in effect for 3 years from the date of decision. Any questions or comments? All those in favor? That's carried.
Thank you.
And the next application is A 3223, and that is Ms. Crowder.
Thank you, Chair Edwards. The next application to be heard is minor variance application A 3223 in the name of 2413307 Ontario Inc., also referred to as Henschel. The subject lands are known municipally as 1113 Gulf Avenue Road, Unit 3. Next slide, please. I would direct committee's attention to the submitted site plans on pages 60 and 61 of the agenda package. The purpose and effect of the application is to construct covered porch and screened room additions to an existing dwelling. Notice of this public hearing under the Planning Act was circulated 19 days in advance of this meeting, and 4 submissions have been received to date. Next slide, please. Comments have been received from Tim Sopko, the township's public works technician, stating no objection to the application. At the time the application was submitted, a letter of support was included from Stuart and Jane Shipper, abutting property owners. At the time the application was submitted, a letter of support was included from Shirley Smith, abutting property owner. Following the circulation of comments to committee, comments were received from Nick Snyder, the township's chief building official, stating no objection to the application. Next slide, please. Staff have prepared a detailed report for committee's consideration and have recommended that the application be approved. Staff have no further comments at this time and are happy to answer any questions from committee. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Crowder. And is the applicant or applicant's agent here? I see we both listed, but
Yeah, David, the agent here. I can bring them.
Yes,
thank you.
it's Heidi Henschel here, and I'm attending the meeting this morning.
Okay. Would you like to speak first while we're waiting?
I don't have any comments at this time. Thank you for your time.
Okay, could we have your name, address, and postal code, please?
Yes, it's Heidi Henschel, and home address is 97 Claremont Avenue, Kitchener, Ontario, N2M 2P7.
Okay, thank you.
The agent.
Agents not accepting. Is there anyone else here wishing to speak in support of this application? Anyone in opposition to this application? Oh. The agent doesn't want to come in, I'll read the motion. Moved by member Quinn, second.
Chair, I have a quick question.
Oh, yes, okay, go ahead, sorry.
It's in regard to the sleeping cabin, the northern sleeping cabin. It's noted on, there's a photograph of it on page 58. Which has a washroom attached, and on page 61. It indicates that that's 18 feet from the watermark, I believe. I just wanted to confirm that that's acceptable placement with respect to septic and a washroom close to the water.
Okay, can you answer that, Ms. Pryor?
Through you, Chair Edwards, to Member Stokes. The sleeping cabin to the north with the detached bathroom is considered a legal non-complying structure. It was built, at the time it was built, it was considered compliant with the zoning bylaw at that time. In regards to the septic, I'm just pulling up the main. Yeah, so I see the indicated septic system on the property looks to be set back beyond the 66 feet. If you see the filled area, if you look on page 60 of the agenda package, it looks to be that the septic is set back substantially further, but perhaps the agent or applicant can speak to your question more closely, if that doesn't answer your question.
No, that's fine, as long as everybody's satisfied. It was just something that struck me.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Moved by member Quinn, second by member Bergman, and be it resolved that application A 3223 Henschel. That's 2413307 Ontario Inc. Be constructed to cover up to a covered porch and a screened room addition to the existing dwelling is hereby approved with the following variances being granted. One, to permit a total of 7,361 square feet floor area for the dwelling where more than one sleeping cabin exists. Two, to permit the expansion of the dwelling unit where 3 sleeping cabins exist on the lot. These variances are granted as shown on the plan attached to the notice of decision. This approval shall remain in effect for 3 years from the date of decision. Any questions or comments? All those in favor? And that's carried. And the next application is A 3523 Wilson, and that's Ms. Gillen.
Thank you and good morning, Chair Edwards and committee. The next application to be heard is minor variance application A 3523 in the name of Wilson. The subject lands are known municipally as 1493 Windermere Road. Next slide, please. I would direct committee's attention to the submitted site plan on page 82 of the agenda package. The purpose and effect of this application is to convert an existing main primary dwelling to an accessory secondary dwelling and construct a new main primary dwelling. Next slide, please. Notice of this public hearing under the Planning Act was circulated 20 days in advance of this meeting, and no submissions from neighbors or members of the public have been received to date. Comments were received from the Township's Building Services Division and the Township's Public Works Department stating no objection. Next slide, please. Staff have prepared a detailed report for committee's consideration and have recommended that the requested minor variance application be approved. Staff have no further comments at this time and are happy to answer any questions from committee. Thank you.
Thank you. Is the applicant or applicant's agent here wishing to speak on this?
Hi, I'm Samantha Anderson, and I am the agent for Mr. Wilson.
Okay. And we need your mailing address and postal code, please.
Yep, it's 93 Bell Farm Road, Suite 107 in Barrie, L4M5G1.
Okay, thank you. Okay, go ahead. What would you like to say?
I'm just here to answer any questions that you might have for me. I did think that it was important also to just add the intentions of my client is to later apply for a building permit for a new primary dwelling. He wants the opportunity to age in place, and the current dwelling is very important to him. However, he is looking to build a newer home with some more accessibility accessories, but on his own property. But we have both reviewed the staff report and are on board with the analysis. So I'm just here and happy to respond to any further comments or questions.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else here wish to speak in support of this application? No, anyone in opposition? Any questions from the members? Moved by member Brown, second by member Stokes, be it resolved that application A 3523 Wilson to convert an existing main/primary dwelling to an accessory secondary dwelling and construct a new main/primary dwelling is hereby approved with the following variance being granted. 1, to permit a maximum floor area of 1,248 square feet for an accessory secondary dwelling, and 2, to permit a maximum accessory building height of 25.5 feet. These variances are granted as shown on the plan attached to the notice of decision. This approval shall remain in effect for 3 years from the date of decision. Any questions or comments? All those in favor? It's carried. And the next application is A 3623 Clark, and that's Ms. Crowder.
Thank you, Chair Edwards. The next application to be heard is minor variance application A 3623 in the name of Clark. The subject lands are known municipally as 1052 Penny Road. Next slide, please. I would direct committee's attention to the submitted site plan on page 97 of the agenda package. The purpose and effect of the application is to change the use of an existing dwelling to a sleeping cabin, to recognize an as-built entry addition to the new dwelling, and to construct an addition to a single-story boat port. Since the time of circulation, the applicant has amended the application to exclude the boat port addition. Notice of this public hearing under the Planning Act was circulated 15 days in advance of this meeting, and 3 submissions have been received to date. Next slide, please. Comments have been received from Tim Sopko, the Township's Public Works Technician, stating no objection to the application. A letter of support was received prior to circulation of the application from Tom Petch, a budding property owner. Following the circulation of comments to committee, comments were received from Nick Snyder, the Township's Chief Building Official, stating no objection. Next slide, please. Staff have prepared a detailed report for committee's consideration and have recommended that the application be approved subject to a condition that a satisfactory minor variance agreement under section 45, 9.1 and 9.2 of the Planning Act be entered into and registered on title along with securities for retention of vegetation and plantings to revegetate the shoreline buffer. Since the time the staff report was published, the owner, Mr. Bob Clark, has reached out to the township detailing planting work that he has begun since the time of staff's site visit. He had requested that the condition be removed. Staff are comfortable not holding securities for the revegetative work, but recommend that the condition for an agreement registered on title remain, as it will be binding on future property owners and will help to ensure that the buffer is not removed in future. I have discussed this approach with the owner and he is agreeable to this new revised condition. Staff have no further comments at this time and are happy to answer any questions from committee. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Crowder. And we have the owner or the applicant's agent here wishing to speak on this. Okay. Go ahead, Mr. Donaldson.
Hi there, Sean Donaldson, 3687 Highway 118 West, Port Carling, Ontario, P0B1J0. Thank you, Emily, for the outline of the application today. The reason why the boat port was removed was because there was, unbeknownst to us, there was fish habitat, and Bob Clark didn't want to go through a fish habitat assessment. So we just cut the addition to the boat port altogether. The reason for it was to get as much coverage as we could within the 11% or the additional 1% according to the OP. And so without that boat port, we are now well within the extra 1%. I believe we're right around 0.3% over the 10% allowed inside of 200. If you have any questions, I'm here to answer them. But aside from that, I feel like it's fairly straightforward. There's a building that's currently standing there. It's a garage with an attached bunkie. The idea is to close off one of the bedrooms and turn that into storage only accessible from the garage. So that will become garage space instead of bunkie space. And yeah, that's pretty much everything. If you have any questions, let me know.
Great, thank you very much. Is there anyone else here wishing to speak in support of this application? Anyone wishing to speak in opposition to this application? No? Okay. Any questions from the members? Yes?
Through you, Chair Edwards, I just, since Mr. Donaldson didn't hit on the securities component, I just wanted to clarify, just so it was abundantly clear, the reasons why staff are willing to forego the securities from the required condition. In this case, Mr. Clark's already sent us photos detailing the plantings that have occurred, and they're quite significant, involving numerous trees. So I think given that the plantings have already been done, we could strike the securities component from the condition. But as Ms. Crowder had explained, we'd want to keep the remaining condition in place just to make sure that it's enforceable going forward, and it would allow the municipality to address any occurrences of trees that may be in poor health going forward, things of that nature. So I just thought I'd provide a quick summary of where we're at with that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Moved by member Grogan Green, second by member Quinn. Be it resolved that application A 3623 amended Clark to change the use of an existing dwelling to a sleeping cabin and to remove an as-built entry addition to the new dwelling is hereby approved with the following variances being granted: to permit a lot coverage of 2,601 square feet or 10.3% within 200 feet of the high water mark. This variance is granted as shown on a plan attached to the notice of decision and hereby subject to the following condition. And I will read it as it was, and then we can strike it out if we have to. That is satisfactory minor variance agreement under section 45, 9.1 and 9.2 of the Planning Act be entered into and registered on title, along with securities for retention of vegetation and plantings to revegetate the shoreline buffer. If we take out the along with securities, it would now read: the Planning Act be entered into and registered on title for retention of vegetation and planting of revegetate the shoreline buffer. Is that satisfactory, everyone? Okay, all those in favor? And that is carried.
Thank you, committee.
And the next application is A 3723, and that is Ms. Crowder.
Thank you, Chair Edwards. The next application to be heard is minor variance application A 3723 in the names of Granado and Busalis. The subject lands are known municipally as 1038 Sunset Bay Road. Next slide, please. I would direct committee's attention to the submitted site plan on page 115 of the agenda package. The purpose and effect of the application is to demolish a sun deck and construct a new sun deck, enclose an existing covered porch, demolish and rebuild a garage in a different location, and construct a single-story boathouse on an existing dock. Notice of this public hearing under the Planning Act was circulated 11 days in advance of this meeting, and 5 submissions have been received to date. Next slide, please. Comments have been received from Tim Sopko, the township's public works technician, stating that Public Works does not support the reduction of setbacks from the road allowance, but that Public Works has no comments or concerns with the proposal to enclose the covered porch. A letter of objection was received from Sarah Petrie, a budding property owner, stating that they are not in support of any variances for this property, stating concerns that the straight line frontage provided may not be accurate, the design of the garage, and the site alteration that has been conducted on the site to create a large driveway. A letter of objection was received from Douglas Cameron, area property owner, stating concerns that the straight line frontage measurement indicated on the site plan may not be correct, and stating that they do not support the request for the variance. Following the circulation of comments to committee, comments were received from Nick Snyder, the township's chief building official, stating no objection to the application. Next slide, please. Staff have prepared a detailed report for committee's consideration and have recommended that the application be approved, subject to the following conditions: that a satisfactory minor variance agreement under section 45, 9.1 and 9.2 of the Planning Act be entered into and registered on title, along with securities for retention of vegetation and plantings to revegetate the shoreline buffer, and that a building permit be obtained for a sun deck not indicated on the submitted site plan, or alternatively, that it be removed. Staff have no further comments at this time and are happy to answer any questions from committee. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is the applicant or applicant's agent here wish to speak on this? I see we have the permit guy.
Yes, I am the applicant's agent, Adam Lenny, the permit guy, 35 Covered Bridge Trail and Bracebridge, P1L 1Y1. Through you, Chair, and thank you for hearing me today. With regards to the covered deck being closed in for habitable space, we are just looking for slightly more living space with a minimal impact on the property. No setbacks are being increased to the cottage, only the exterior walls moves out for a portion of that front wall. The setback to the roof and the footing stay the same, and no lot coverage is increased with regards to that. With regards to the proposed boathouse, we had designed at lengths in order to come up with something we thought would comply with the cumulative width bylaw. It seems our interpretation of this specific bylaw was slightly inaccurate, and is why we're here asking for relief from those bylaws today. It is our opinion that it meets the 3 tests of a minor variance, and it does represent good planning and in keeping with the official plan. The homeowners are amenable to adding more trees and vegetation to the shoreline within reason. With regards to the deck not shown on the site plan, this is to be removed. The clients have an open building permit for a deck replacement, and that wood is just being repurposed to use for that deck. The same goes for the woodshed. We have a permit for a new garage, and that woodshed will be demolished this fall, and we'll seek necessary permits as needed. Thank you for your time, and I'm here for any questions.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else here wishing to speak in support of this application? Anyone in opposition to this application? Yes. You may come up now, please. You have your name, address, and post.
My name is Doug Cameron. My wife and I live at 1034 Sunset Bay Road, north of this property. I've sent in 2 letters, and basically my main concern is the setback being reduced to 23 feet from the present 50. When we were building, it's quite a few years ago, we were, I guess, forced to honor the setbacks that are community driven. Is it now not 66 feet instead of 50? Is that the current? Does anybody know the answer to that?
Yeah, we can certainly speak to that. So the current bylaws today require a minimum setback of 50 feet for sun decks and 66 feet for dwellings. However, there are rights afforded to legal non-complying structures. The current dwelling in place has a legal non-complying setback, which is shown on the submitted site plan.
At any rate, I'm definitely in favor of maintaining the 50 feet and disallowing it to be cut less than half of the current standards. Also, I have one other comment. We only received the notification of this 4 business days before this meeting today. I think they were mailed out on the 4th. That was that's Friday before the long weekend. So with Monday being gone, if we wanted to get anything surveyed or to research this, we really weren't given very much time. I think I heard earlier 21 days. That would have been much more appropriate. Lastly, I have a concern that the original survey shows 140 feet of straight line property, waterfront property, yet the site plan from the property guy shows 163. I mentioned this in an inquiry, and I thought it could be addressed at this meeting. What is the proper straight line frontage for that property?
Sure. So through you, Chair Edwards, a few points there that I can sort of speak on. The application was circulated, the notice was circulated 11 days in advance of this meeting. The Planning Act requires that it be circulated at least 10 days in advance. So we did circulate the application in accordance with the Planning Act. We try to get them out as soon as we can, but sometimes there are different factors. Sometimes we need certain things from the applicant or the agent before we can circulate an application, which is why some applications tend to go out with more notice than others, but we can assure that it did go out in accordance with the Planning Act. In regards to the straight line frontage, the number submitted to township staff was 163 feet, and that was provided by the permit guy, which is the agent for the application. Committee does have the authority to require that the application be adjourned until an Ontario land surveyor confirms the frontage, but township staff, the numbers that are provided to us, we take at face value, and those are the numbers that we have to go by. But committee does have the option to require that the frontage be confirmed.
Thank you very much.
If I may, when I have a second.
I think that would be appropriate, by the way, to confirm it. What would his tax submission show? Like, what does his property tax show? Mine shows the exact measurement of my front line, and I think most other people's do. His would be 140. When the property was listed for sale 2 years ago, the real estate information we assume would be accurate. I'm sure they'd have a problem if it wasn't. Showed 140 feet.
Yes, Mr.
If I may.
Sharp.
Through you, Chair Edwards. Just to clarify, there is a distinction between what we would call the assessed or the actual lot frontage, which is what the Municipal Property Assessment Corporation uses for tax purposes. That would be the, essentially the sinuous frontage or the actual shoreline frontage of the property, which tends to be a larger number than the straight line frontage, which is used for the purposes of the zoning bylaw to measure lot frontage. I do see that Mr. Lenny, the agent for the applicant, would like to speak and may have some information with respect to the actual lot frontage measurement. So I would just leave it at that for now. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir. Would you like to comment on that?
Hi, yes, thank you. Through you, Chair. The owners did have a survey done. I just actually emailed it to Emily, and it does confirm the straight line frontage of 163 feet, straight line. And I believe our tax bills, correct me if I'm wrong, are by the shoreline, and we use planning for straight line. And also to touch on, for the covered entry, it's not really an addition. We're using the same roof. We're just closing in that front covered roof of it for 3/4 of it. And we're actually not even encroaching. Where it encroaches at the north end, we're leaving that open still. Just to clarify that, it's not actually an addition. We're increasing habitable space, not roof coverage.
Okay, thank you.
So could that not, why do they want to change the waterfront setback if they're not going to do any building on it?
I think it's a technicality, but go ahead.
Through you, Chair Edwards, I can confirm I just received the survey from Mr. Lenny, so it does show the straight line frontage on it of 163 feet. In regards to the nature of the application, the covered deck currently in place has a setback of, it looks like 20 feet or 23, I think is noted in the application, 23. So what they're planning to do is enclose that covered porch. So they're not adding an addition closer to the front water. They're enclosing the covered porch that exists today.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you. Anyone else here wish to speak? Yes, sir.
This is Steve Petrie. I'd like to address the committee. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. Oh, thank you. Appreciate the opportunity to speak today. I'm the owner at 1036 Sunset Bay, just to the south of this subject property. And my mailing address of the township is 2648 Northeast 26th Avenue, Lighthouse Point, Florida, USA 33064. And as Mr. Cameron requested, I would also request that these measurements be independently verified and that the survey provided by the homeowners not be relied upon at face value. I think it should be independently verified, 163 feet. Plus, I don't know that the dock that was already put in was ever inspected for the setback in terms of 30-foot setback required for that. I'd also request that that be verified. And there are many issues with this permit I'd like to point out to the committee. And I don't think any permit or variance should be issued until clarifications and additional information has been provided and existing violations have been corrected. And some issues I see, these homeowners previously built a structure in violation of the setback. It was a non-permitted structure. They were ordered by the township to have it removed and refused to do so until the township had to threaten litigation to have it removed. At least that's my understanding from information provided by the township. And you'll see on this permit application, on the southern boundary are 7 building piers. So even though the main part of the structure was removed, these building piers have been left there, even though they're in violation of the setback and were non-permitted structure put in by these homeowners. I think that those building piers in violation of the setback should be removed before any further consideration of any additional permits. furthermore, this proposed garage, it doesn't show the staircases on the pictures. They're clearly stairs going to and from this garage to the upper level, which is clearly not for storage purposes. It's clearly for living purposes. And I think that should be represented correctly on any application. I mean, it has windows, it has a walkway, it has stairs going upstairs. It's clearly for living purposes. And I think it should be correctly, proposed to the committee on the permit application. And the proposed stairs are not on this permit, the site plan. So the site plan actually underrepresents the square footage of the construction being anticipated. Then I also don't understand in terms of the extension of the sides of the building, which is also on the site plan. On page 35 of the zoning bylaws, referring to the table 4.1.3, it appears there has to be a 30-foot exterior side setback, and this only provides for a 15-foot exterior side setback. So I think the permit application should be adjourned until the existing violations are corrected, and it's corrected in terms of the garage is not for storage purposes. The upper floor, it's clearly for living space. You see the pictures, the stairs are not on the permit application. I think that needs to be corrected. And I don't think any variance should be issued pertaining to this property, especially when they're still in violation of past directives from the township to remove non-permitted structures from the setback. Thank you.
Yeah, Ms. Crowder?
Through you, Chair Edwards, I think I can clarify a few of those items. In regard to the required setback of the garage, I believe that Mr. Petrie was referring to the required setback from an exterior side lot line. This is an interior side lot line, so the required setback is 15 feet in this case. The stairs and the sun deck were not shown on the submitted site plan as differentiated from the garage. However, they would need to be set back 15 feet as well. When they go to apply for a building permit, those details would need to be shown and would be verified by our building staff that they comply with zoning. As far as the use of the garage, the applicant and their agent have submitted drawings indicating that the upper story of the garage is to be storage only. Staff have seen and committee have seen situations like this before. And I would just note that on this property, one sleeping cabin and one dwelling are permitted. Right now, only one dwelling exists. So if this garage is intended to be habitable space, we would request that the agent or applicant confirm that. But as of right now, they have told staff that it is storage only, and our bylaws do permit that. So perhaps the applicant or agent can confirm what the intended use of this upper story is, but to staff's knowledge, it is to be storage. If I'm missing some of the points that Mr. Petrie brought up, I can certainly respond to them, but perhaps they can refresh if there's any specific questions that staff can answer.
Well, I would again ask that these measurements be independently verified. I've never gotten any confirmation from the township that the deck was inspected in terms of the 30-foot setback. And I just ask that all setbacks for this property be strictly enforced by the township and be independently verified. And I'd also ask that these 7 piers, these 7 piers from the prior structure that was supposed to be removed, they're still sitting there and they shouldn't be part of this permit application. So I mean, these homeowners are still in violation of a past violation found by the township. So I just don't think they should be allowed to ask for variances and further permits when they remain in violation of a past directive by the township.
Okay, thank you very much, sir. And we had one more person wanting to speak.
So I just want to bring up the point that.
Your name, address.
Sorry, Justin Campbell, address 63 Whitburn Street, Whitby, Ontario, postal code L1R 1R4. We are the neighbors directly beside them. Just regarding the straight line frontage, like we currently have a permit in place for a extension. We have not completed that, but the permit is still valid and is in with Muskoka Lakes. So the concern we have is the way that the current dock that was constructed, will that interfere with the potential 30 feet separation from the permit that we currently have in place? Regarding the straight line frontage, I think we're also would like to confirm that that is correct at 163 feet, because everything that we had, it was 140 feet of frontage that was available to the public knowledge. And then regarding the deck, just want to make sure that there is the 15-foot setback to our property. So, because it's we're right next to it.
Thank you. And I believe the yes, Mr. Sharp.
Thank you, Chair Edwards. Just to reiterate, Mr. Lenny, the agent, has forwarded staff a survey by Chapel Galbraith surveyors here in Port Carling. It was done in September of 2021, and it does confirm the straight line frontage as being 163 feet. And that firm, they are Ontario land surveyors, certified Ontario land surveyors. So staff are satisfied with the straight line frontage. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much for clearing that up.
So just the concern I have is with the additional slip that we already have a permit in place for. The way that the new dock is constructed, if that falls within 30 feet, that then, should our permit not supersede? Like, I don't want to be in a position where we already have a permit in place, and the way they've constructed their dock, if it falls below the 30 feet, we may not be able to do our construction of our dock that was a permit from 2016. So
yes, go ahead.
Through you, Chair Edwards. The dock currently complies with the required 30-foot setback from either lot line. So the dock has a permit, it's been issued, and it is under construction right now. It will not interfere with any owner's abilities to construct shoreline structures, provided the abutting property owners comply with zoning bylaw provisions. There is another dock currently on the property that you would have seen in the photos from the staff report. That dock has been issued a demolition permit and is required to be removed prior to final inspection and occupancy granted, or final certificate granted for the new dock. So I don't know if maybe that is the dock that is being referred to, but I can assure that the docks that have permits will not interfere with the neighboring property owners' abilities to apply for shoreline structures.
Okay, thank you very much then. So you're fine. Yours. And
okay.
And a surveyor has verified that the measurements, we're not going to ask them to resurvey.
We haven't surveyed our property.
No, but I'm just saying this property has been surveyed, so I think that has been answered, that question. So thank you very much, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions from the members? We'll start here with Member Bridgman and then.
Thank you, Chair Edwards. I would like a little more background on the reference to violations on this property that haven't been fixed yet, that the township has put out there. I think I want a complete history on this. Is it all completely grandfathered then, this building? And then what are the violations that apparently haven't been rectified yet? Thank you. I think it's you, Ms. Crowder.
Through you, Chair Edwards, we're just opening up the orders just to check the status. If you could give us just a minute. Thank you.
Okay.
Can I address that question in the interim?
No, sorry, it's gone to committee.
Through you, Chair Edwards, and thank you for your question, Member Bridgman. What I can say is that there were orders that were applied in the property in 2021. According to our records, those orders have been lifted. So there are no enforcement matters open or ongoing at this time. I'd leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you.
And Member Stokes.
Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to hear from the agent or the property owner with respect to the structure above the garage and its use. It certainly strikes me that it's a pretty nice place to store boxes.
Yes, hi, through you, Chair. Yes, when we were hired to design this, it was all strictly storage upstairs. They have the right down the road if they wanted to turn it into a sleeping cabin through permit through that. But what we were hired for was strictly for storage.
I feel like in the past, when we've seen garages like this, where it's pretty evident that they're for accommodation, that we put on title that it is for habitable space.
Sure.
Is that not correct? That in the past, we've done that.
Sure. And yeah, the bylaw allows it to be a sleeping cabin. So without speaking to the clients, I would assume that would be okay since it meets all applicable bylaws. Just comes down to septic, which is going to be replaced anyways.
Through you, Chair, Edwards, just to clarify, the township's zoning bylaw does allow storage buildings on waterfront residentially zoned properties. In this case, the applicants are proposing to construct a garage fully in compliance with the township zoning. What's in front of committee is relief for a variance from a front yard setback requirement for a covered porch. So in this particular instance, the owners have a right to go and apply today to construct this 2-story garage with storage above. If they opt to decide at some point in the future to change the use of that upper level to a sleeping cabin, they would need to either apply for it in that way or apply for a change of use permit. And through that process, the township's development services division, the building department, would review considerations related to private on-site sewage disposal to make sure that the property and any existing system can accommodate that habitable use. But as far as we're concerned, as I had indicated, the garage is for storage above, that's permitted, complies with the zoning bylaw. And if their use were to change to a sleeping cabin, or if they decided for it to be a sleeping cabin, it would appear to comply with all the requirements with respect to zoning. So there's a 650 square foot limitation on the maximum floor area for a sleeping cabin. The second story of this garage would be less than that. So staff at this time don't have any concerns. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Member Bridget.
Thank you, Chair Edwards. Maybe just for clarification, Mr. Sharp, this is a sleeping, this is storage, but if the plans show a bathroom, that will be part of, my concern is always septic too. So I'm assuming the final inspection, if there's a washroom, then they're going to make sure the septic can accommodate that. Just for clarification for everybody.
Through you, Chair Edwards. Yes, thank you. Washrooms are permitted in a garage, so they would be able to incorporate a water closet or a washroom in this building. As of right, they would just need to apply for it as part of that application process. The details with respect to fixture units and capacity for wastewater would be reviewed as part of the building permit. Thank you.
Yes, Member Quinn.
I have a couple comments here. One of them being, where we've restricted garage or above living space in the past. It's usually when there's been another property on the building where they've used their 650, whether that's in another building or a boathouse live above. But really, what's before us here is a variance, a minor variance for the main building itself, and the porch out front and its setback, and to me, to be 23 feet or over a 50% variance, it really doesn't meet the test of a minor variance. And I think that if he had neighbor support, I would be more supportive of this. But I think with the neighbor concerns and it being that big of a variance, I don't see it as a minor variance, and I can't, I won't be supporting this today.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? I'll read the motion. Yes.
Through you, Chair Edwards, I think the issue for me is it's already grandfathered in. So the variance, they're not asking for any difference in the variance from the water. They're just asking to have this enclosed. So that's the grandfathering. That's why I wanted to make sure this is grandfathered. This building has been up long enough that it has that right. It's been grandfathered. Mr. Sharp?
Through you, Chair Edwards. Yeah, Ms. Crowder hit on this, but the details with respect to permissions for expansions to legal non-complying buildings within front yard setbacks can be quite complicated. In this particular instance, the existing dwelling is legal non-complying and has a front yard setback of 20 feet. So it's already well within what the zoning bylaw would otherwise require today if this was a vacant lot, which is 66. So there's certain criteria that need to be met in order for these types of buildings to be constructed or to be expanded upon. In this particular instance, the addition that's proposed would be permitted as of right at a setback of 35 feet from the high water mark. But the dwelling is already within that distance. So in this particular instance, what is proposed is to close in an existing porch. So that development or that footprint largely already exists. The application is simply to close it in, and it's largely, in our view, from a staff perspective, largely a technical exercise. The height complies, it complies with all of those other zoning provisions. So I would just leave it at that for now, but happy to elaborate if needed. Thank you.
Yes.
Sorry, here I am again, sorry. So Mr. Sharp, basically, if they took that enclosed area and they added it on to the back of their place, they wouldn't be here because it would comply with all of our bylaws. Am I correct?
Essentially, the addition in terms of its size and height would comply at a setback of 35 feet, but it's just the situation as it exists. It would be hard to do that, I think, without a total tear down and reconstruction. So there's some technical aspects that apply here. With saying all that, I think ultimately what it comes down to, these provisions that allow these expansions to front buildings within front yard setbacks, ultimately those provisions are designed to maintain the character of what's there today, to allow certain additions and while maintaining the character. And I would say that this addition, given the context, is going to maintain the character. It's not going to increase the height. It's closing in an existing porch. So those are my comments from now. Thank you.
Okay, any other comments or questions? Yes.
My only comment is what happens when the thing gets rebuilt. I mean, we're going to give them the ability to, I mean, they have a beautiful new boathouse and a beautiful new 2-story non-habitable space, which we all know likely isn't going to last. But, you know, it seems like it's possible that this thing could eventually just get torn down, and we've given somebody the right to go even closer to the water with a lot of glass and steel and, you know, light pollution and so on. Like I personally, I'm not in favor of this either. I feel that I'm in line with what Member Quinn says.
Yes, Mr. Sharp, would you explain that again? That they're not going closer, they're just enclosing a deck. Is that not right, or am I wrong?
No, thank you, Chair Edwards. So essentially the existing dwelling set back 20 feet. The existing covered porch is set back 23 feet, and they're not reducing that existing covered porch setback. They're closing it in, maintaining the existing setback. With respect to what may occur in the future, The zoning bylaw provisions would allow the dwelling to be torn down in its entirety and moved back to 50 feet. And the height could increase to 35 feet. And you could build it right out to the maximum in terms of what lot coverage would allow. So that would really be the alternative in terms of, again, speaking to the future. I don't have a crystal ball, but if the owner or a new owner were to take over the property and they wanted to do something that didn't comply, we'd be back in front of you with another application, debating the merits of that application at that time. So again, what's in front of us is the proposed addition. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? I'll read it. Moved by member Stokes, second by member Bridgman, be it resolved that application A 3723 Granado and Bosellas to enclose an existing covered porch that's construct a dwelling addition is hereby approved with the following variance being granted to permit a construction of addition to a dwelling within 23.5 feet of the required front yard setback. This variance is granted as shown on the plan attached to the notice of decision and is subject to the following conditions. 1, that a building permit be obtained for a sun deck not included on the submitted site plan, or alternately it be removed or brought into compliance with the applicable zoning provisions. And 2, that a satisfactory minor variance agreement under section 4599.1 and 9.2 of the Planning Act be entered into, along with a registered on title with the securities for retention of vegetation and planting and revegetate the shoreline buffer. This approval shall remain in effect for 3 years from the date of decision. Any questions? I will ask, since this is being registered on title for the vegetation and the plantings, does the committee wish to make it that the second story of the garage is only for storage and that is registered on title?
They get it as a matter of rights.
Yeah, no, but I'm just asking, and that's fair because somebody did mention that. So, okay, all those in favor? All those opposed? Okay, that is carried. I think at this time, we're going to take a 10-minute comfort break. Okay, I'd like to call the meeting back to order, please. Next application is A 3823, and that's 1-000-301083 Ontario Inc. And that is Ms. Gillen.
Thank you, Chair Edwards and committee. The next application to be heard is minor variance A-3823 in the name of 1-000-301083 Ontario Inc. The subject lands are known municipally as 1519 Muskoka District Road 118 West, Unit 9. Next slide, please. I would direct committee's attention to the submitted site plan on page 137 of the agenda package. The purpose and effect of this application is to recognize an as-built dock and to construct a new single-story boathouse. Next slide, please. Notice of public hearing under the Planning Act was circulated 18 days in advance of today's meeting, and owners of one neighboring property submitted comments in response to the notice. Margaret and David Smith, neighbors to the immediate east, wrote in opposition to the application. They feel the requested variance is not minor in nature and is not desirable. They feel it will create conflict and safety concerns between boaters and swimmers. They state that the subject property is used as a short-term rental, and therefore some of the boat drivers may be inexperienced when operating boats in close proximity to what they refer to as their swimming area. They also feel there are privacy concerns for both parties due to the proximity of the docks. They feel safety, privacy, and unobstructed views are concerns that are not mitigated by the application, and that there are not factors which would prevent the applicants from complying with required setbacks. The Smiths have retained Marie Poirier Planning to represent them in opposition at today's meeting. These submitted comments can be read in full at committee's request, as they did in part come in after the comments were circulated. Comments were received from the Township's Building Services Division and the Township's Public Works Department with no objections stated. Next slide, please. Staff have prepared a detailed report for committee's consideration and have recommended that minor variance application A3823 be approved. Staff have no further comments at this time and are happy to answer any questions from committee. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And is the applicant or applicant's agent wishing to speak on this?
Yes, hi, I am the applicant's agent, Adam Lenny, the permit guy, 35 Covered Bridge Trail Bracebridge, P1L 1Y1. Through you, Chair, and thank you for hearing us today. The applicant hired my company to obtain building permits for an old boathouse and docks to be demolished on the west side and a new steel dock and boathouse to be constructed. We had obtained a building permit for a new dock showing all bylaws and setbacks to be compliant. A site visit was planned after permit drawings were approved with the homeowner, the surveyor, dock builder, and myself. We had realized that there was substantial bedrock that would land in the middle of the boat slip and therefore be too shallow in the slip. So we decided to move the dock over to the east to get better egress to the docks and slips, as well as take into account neighboring docks and their egress. If you note 135 figure 4, you'll see the neighbors to the west are fairly close. At this time, I had mentioned setback dimensions that were unfortunately incorrect, which is why we're asking relief from the side yard setback today. Once the dock was built and the surveyor came back to check all measurements, they had done their own straight line frontage calculations, which differed from our site plan created from a survey from the plan of subdivision, which is why are we asking for those reliefs on the cumulative widths today. So in short, we do believe this is minor in nature and meets all the 3 tests of a minor variance. The dock was permitted with all bylaws met, but it was site conditions and my unfortunate wrong on-site advice, which is why we're asking relief here today. All other bylaws are met for the dock and boathouse. I will add that the dock is currently built and in place, as you see. The neighbors to the west, although with their concerns, there is quite a bit of distance, as you'll see in the picture in between there. The exact, we are, I forget what it was. We are for that side yard setback. I mean, I still think it is minor in nature. I'm here to ask any more questions and thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else here wishing to speak on this application?
Yeah.
Would they like to speak? Obviously, they don't want to speak. Is there anyone else wishing to speak in support of this application? Anyone wishing to speak in opposition to this application? Yes?
Yes.
Okay, well, we have people in the audience, so let them speak first. Oh, okay. Yes, whoever wants to speak.
Good morning, Chairman Edwards and committee. My name is David Smith, and my address is 20 DeVere Gardens in North York. And the postal code is M5M3E5. We happen to own the property immediately to the east of the property in question. And as has been noted, we've retained Marie Poirier, Planning and Associates, in regard to this matter, and however, due to a conflict in their schedule, they were unable to be here. But I would like to read in the summary that they provided in their opinion, and I present this with respect, that the application A3823 does not, in their opinion, meet the 4 tests of a minor variance. Test number 1, the application must be minor in nature. Qualitatively and quantitatively, this is not minor. 38% of a setback is not minor for a frontage of this size. If the property was larger, 38% may pose as appropriate, but this is not the case. Test number 2, the application must be desirable for the appropriate development of the land or building. Given the existing use and character of the subject land and surrounding properties, the proposal is not desirable. The proposal will create conflict among swimmers and boaters, creating a high level of safety concerns, docking boats and potentially inexperienced drivers, because this is a short-term rental property, may enter or be close to entering the easterly property's swimming area. The easterly neighboring dock is in close proximity to the unauthorized new dock and proposed boathouse, creating privacy concerns for both parties. Given the lack of safety and privacy, this is not an example of good planning or development. In test 3 and 4, the application must maintain the intent of the official plan and zoning bylaw. The official plan and zoning bylaw promotes safety, privacy, vegetation, and unobstructed views, but none of these are mitigated in the application. Specifically, section 5.14B in the zoning bylaw, and I quote, "In the case of shoreline structures, to allow for the ingress and egress of boats to dock spaces and boathouse slips, while maintaining reasonable views and separation for privacy between neighboring properties," unquote. The staff report suggests that much of this will not be affected, but we do not believe this to be the case. And my wife will add reasons to this in a moment in her presentation, complete with photo evidence. Section 5.14C, and I quote, "Consideration may be given to alternatives where such setbacks are not possible due to terrain or other constraints," unquote. The application does not illustrate any factors which prevent or constrain the applicant from complying with the setbacks. So my wife and I agree with these points, and we object to this application. We'd like to see the dock placed where it was originally proposed to be and approved to be. And if I may, just one add-on to this, that in the township report at the bottom of, I believe it was page 6, and on to page 7, the planner's report refers to 2 evaluations that have not been completed. And one is the species at risk evaluation, and the other is the fisheries resources evaluation. We would, if the committee in its wisdom decides to approve this, we request that you would ensure that these evaluations will be done prior to any approval. And I thank you for your time and your consideration in this matter.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Good morning, Chair and Committee. My name is Margaret Smith, and my mailing address is 20 DeVere Gardens, North York, Ontario. Postal code is M5M3E5. In regards to this application 3823, we respectively are bringing forth some details and concerns that we believe that the township planner may not have been or was not aware of when she did her report from my conversations. With respect to the specific property, it has been indeed used as a short-term rental property, and we have witnessed this intensification of use, and therefore separation and privacy is more important. It is therefore difficult to see how separation for privacy between neighboring properties has been adequately considered. In addition to its current use as a short-term rental, the owner is parking his boats in the available slips. As a result, renters are parking their boats on the easterly side of the dock. This brings boating activity very close to our swimming area. Thus, we dispute the town's position that ingest and egest is not anticipated to be impacted. We have children and grandchildren that visit us at the cottage, and we are very concerned about the safety of swimmers with boating now occurring so close, and often by inexperienced boaters, the renters, who will now have to maneuver in and out through this swimming area in order to dock on the easterly side. A permit was recently issued for a compliant dock. The permit had setbacks of 48.06 feet on the westerly side, 48, and 31.02 on the easterly side. This mistake, as it's been referred to, is a 38% difference in the allowable setback of the 30 feet. And to note that the lot is approximately 100 feet in frontage. We see no reason why this dock cannot be built in the location of the original permit. We would further note that the site conditions and topography are not particularly unique, and a boathouse and dock can easily be situated in compliance with the bylaw and original permit. We would also like to respectfully ask about the length of the as-built dock and where the measurements are from. If you look at the survey as part of the site plan, and I raise these issues more as minor issues, but just in terms of the length of the dock shows that it's in red written as 66 feet, but it does not confirm where the measurements are taken from and if that's from the high water mark. So I would ask for clarification on that, if possible. Also, if I could draw your attention to the elevations and floor plans submitted for the boathouse on page 1, it mentions insulation and an attic roof space. Also on page 4, it mentions roof insulation of R31 and wall insulation of R22. Then on page 6, it also mentions receptacles in bathrooms, kitchens, and garages, and also talks about audios and speakers. So we are a little confused by this on the site plan for the proposed boathouse, and respectfully ask for clarification on that as well. In conclusion, we called the township office last summer when we first came up north to our cottage in the spring, and as it appeared that the dock was very close to the lot line. We were told by the township building department that the dock had a permit and it would be inspected, and if it was not to code, they would have to adjust it. Therefore, we're somewhat surprised that the as-built dock is only now being considered by the committee, and this time as part of an application to build a boathouse, which when the non-compliance was questioned and last summer and still not adjusted. Two things that I would like to highlight, just again, going back to the safety aspect. I did submit, and I assume from what the planner mentioned, you have a photo of the swimming area and the dock. And if not, do I have permission to pass that to the committee? So if I can just, so you see the, our family and grandkids and so forth swimming, and then you see the non-compliant dock and the proximity of that, where the owner has stored his boats. I circled them in yellow, and his jet ski, so that the renters are parking on that side and coming in to dock very close to that swimming area. Our boathouse that we built there's no variances on our boathouse. We were completely compliant when we built our boathouse 3 or 4 years ago with the same bylaws in place. So we are very concerned about the safety of that. And we really don't see any reason why the boat or the dock isn't built according to the original permit, as the planner also has suggested. And if that were the case, and it was put back into the original place where it was supposed to be, we don't have any issues with the 2 other minor variances that he's asked for on the boathouse, although we do question all the insulation and what's going to actually end up happening with that. But if that's to code, then that's fair enough. But it's really the safety issues are prime thing. And I guess the last thing I would say is that, you know, if the boathouse is going to be approved, as they're asking, there's going to be construction and there's going to be work done in the bay already. And so during that construction, it would seem to us that it would be possible to correct the dock because the construction is already going to be taking place, and put it in a safer place. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else here wish to speak in opposition to this application? Are there questions from the members? Yes, Member Bridgman.
Thank you, Chair Edwards. I have a question. I guess it's for the permit guy because I don't think the owner's here. Help me understand again why this got moved. Why from what it was, what it was permitted? Was it going where the old boathouse was?
No, through you, Chair. The original boathouse was actually encroaching on the westerly neighbor by about, I think it was like 3 feet from the lot line. It was very close, which was demolished and then rebuilt. What the problem was is where the dock was going to go, there was large boulders in the way, like bedrock came up where the slip was and would make that slip in the low waters very unusable. So the dock was shifted to the east because the west, which I will illustrate when we pull up some pictures here in a moment, gets a little tight with that westerly neighbor and their boathouse, as well as the demographic of the bottom of the lake. So it was moved over there. And at that meeting, I had given some, I'm not sure why I had said a number of 15 feet for a setback, but I did, even though I know in my head it's 30, and away they went and they built it. And then the surveyor came back and now we're here today. So that surveyor also, he checked the straight line frontage too, which was actually less than that we had. So that's why the cumulative width was over. If I could ask page 131, that figure 2, just showing the neighbors to the east. And they're concerned about the safety, which I understand. We're talking about, 11.5 feet, still all on their property, still 18.5 feet of their property till they get to the neighbor's property. And then if they have a further 30-foot setback, they comply. I mean, there would be 48 feet just to this dock. So I mean, in my head, there's still lots of use for swimming. The homeowners have told me that they are getting all their guests to park on the west side. They want to be neighborly about this. The bigger part was the error on my side. I mean, moving this dock is a large ordeal, but I still do think this is minor in nature. If you look at that, and then on page 135, there's a dock. You see the dock looking out into the lake, and you'll notice the neighbors to the west. And now I could see if they had an issue, because you could see how close that is. There's very little room. Their boats are on the property line to the people to the west. So, I mean, it was really a logistical reason why the dock was here, as well as a dimension error on my point and some bad advice. I hope that explains it.
Could I have a follow-up Chair.
Yeah, but also if we could look at page 129, it shows the rock that they've moved around. And how wide is that dock that's there now? How many feet wide is it? Page 129.
25. The dock is 25 feet.
Thank you. So, okay, I see
Okay.
that. Can I?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask one question though. How wide is that dock?
25 feet.
Pardon?
Through you, Chair, 25 feet.
It's 25 feet. Okay, thank you. Go ahead.
Question? Okay, so thank you. This is just a comment. I can't believe that this was approved to move the dock without going back with your permit. So I'm having a real difficulty understanding why nobody went back to the building department about this. That's just a comment. I don't need an answer on that. But I know what we have to do now is assume this hasn't been built. That's what you do with these things. I would never approve this. I would be saying, you go back and figure out how you can give that 30-foot clearance. And if I see the rock here, I'm not sure why you can't build around that rock and just leave it as a very nice architectural piece within the boathouse. So I am not supportive of this application for those reasons.
And yet there's comments? Yes, or questions? Yes, Member Stokes.
I agree with Member Bridgman, and just for the record, I think that the neighbors' safety concerns are very valid, and I take those very seriously.
Okay, anyone else?
Sorry, particularly given that this is a short-term rental property and there may or may not be accountability.
Okay, one of the problems I have as a professional, and that moving a 25-foot dock to around a thing without checking it afterwards, and that is, I don't know, I won't say it, but anyway, you should have checked. And you should have had the surveyor come out there, because 25 feet, if you're moving it, even if it was halfway, and that it should have been checked. And that tend to agree with the other two members. And that it seems that everybody just seems to build and ask for forgiveness afterwards. Thank you. Any other comments?
I just agree with you, and I agree with the other members here that, you knew what you were doing and you just figured that you'd get away with it on a committee of adjustment. And this is the problem. It's happened already today with an as-built porch, and people know what they're doing, and it should not pass. So I'm with you on that.
Okay, any other comments? Okay. Moved by Member Bridgman, second by Member Grogan Green. Be it resolved that application A 3823, that's 100301083 Ontario Inc., to recognize an as-built dock and to construct a new single-story boathouse is hereby approved with the following variances being granted. 1, to permit an easterly side yard setback of 18.5 feet for a dock. 2, permit an easterly side yard setback of 25.5 feet for a single-story boathouse with a peak roof, and to permit a cumulative width of 17.5 feet for a single-story boathouse. These variances are granted as shown on the plan attached to the notice of decision. This approval shall remain in effect for 3 years from the date of decision. Any questions or comments? All those in favor? That is defeated. And the next application is A 3823, and that is Ms. Gill.
Thank you, Chair Edwards and committee. The next application to be heard is minor variance application A 3923 in the name of Hasnain. The subject lands are known municipally as 1102 Woodruff Road, Unit 4. Next slide, please. I would direct committee's attention to the submitted site plan on page 159 of the agenda package. The purpose and effect of this application is to construct a one-story garage and a gazebo. Next slide, please. Notice of this public hearing under the Planning Act was circulated 14 days in advance of this meeting, and owners of 2 neighboring properties submitted comments in objection to the application. Peter Steele, neighbor to the immediate west, feels the scale of the garage is unsuitable for a waterfront residential property and feels there is no justification for the requested variance. He says that more than 50% of the wall of the proposed garage facing the lake is glass and is concerned about light pollution shining through from inside as a result. This letter was circulated to committee in advance of this meeting. Andrew and Andrea Federer, owners of a neighboring property 3 doors down on 1102 Woodruff Road, also submitted a letter of objection, which was received after the comment packages were circulated to committee members. One of their concerns was that they didn't receive the initial notice of application in the mail. I looked into this matter and found that their property is just outside of the circulation distance, so therefore they wouldn't have been mailed the notice. I then sent them an electronic version via email. The Federers state that there has been considerable construction activity on this property for 1.5 years, which has damaged the private road, which they also use to access their property. The Federers state the owner has shown no willingness to repair the road, and they also state they contacted the contractor who is building the project and were told the contractors had been instructed not to repair the road. The Federers feel the variance should not be granted without the applicants having to repair the private road, stating the construction of greater size structures than what would be allowed would lead to further destruction of the road, bringing in additional building materials. They also state they feel the owner should have considered the size of the property and its maximum permissible coverage when designing their building plan. They are also looking for clarification on why the applicants wish to build a single-story garage that is 22 feet in height. Staff replied to the submission with a copy of the notice as previously mentioned and information regarding the maximum permitted height of accessory structures outlined in the zoning bylaw, which the proposed garage falls within. Staff also provided instructions on how to join today's meeting and a direct link to do so. I believe the Federers are in attendance today, wishing to speak in opposition. Mr. Federer also asked if I would forward his submitted comments on to the applicant in the hopes that they could reach a resolution regarding the road amongst themselves. I did forward his comments to the email addresses provided for the applicant and agent on the application as requested. I don't know at this time if the parties were able to connect over the weekend. I can read the comments submitted by the Federers in full at committee's request if desired. Comments were received from the Township's Building Services Division and the Township's Public Works Department with no objections stated. Next slide, please. Staff have prepared a detailed report for committee's consideration and have recommended that the requested minor variance application be approved. Staff have no further comments at this time and are happy to answer any questions from committee. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And is the applicant or applicant's agent here wishing to speak on this?
Good morning, Chair Edwards. My name is Ryan Allen. I'm here representing Ms. Hasnain with her application today. Address 104 Kimberley Avenue, Bracebridge, Ontario, P1L1Z8. Thank you, Ms. Gillen, for your excellent review of the application, as well as your positive report and thorough analysis. The property is located at Unit 4, 1102 Woodruff Road, which is a private road on Lake Joseph. It's just more than 2.5 acres and more than 300 feet of frontage with a very irregular shaped shoreline. I think the important thing to note about this property is that it previously was 2 separate lots with 2 separate dwellings, which were then purchased and merged to become 1 lot. And in order to build the new cottage that's the new cottage that's recently been constructed, as well as the 2-story boathouse with a sleeping cabin, that second dwelling was demolished. The proposed garage is in the location of that former dwelling. And using that existing footprint minimizes site alteration, tree removal, and you'll see some photos in the staff report that show an excellent shoreline vegetative buffer that will provide good visual screening, excuse me. There are two structures proposed as part of this application. One is a gazebo, and I would note that the gazebo could actually be constructed today with a building permit as of right. However, when you add in the garage, the cumulative size of both structures put us over the 10% maximum. And we're over by just under 600 square feet. And without the gazebo, the garage is about 380 square feet oversized. There's about 250 feet of separation between the garage location and the existing dwelling, which provides for dispersed development patterns, as well as maintaining the low density pattern that you'd expect to see in the waterfront area. The height does comply with the required 25-foot height limit. It is only a one-story building. There are windows that appear from the exterior to be second-story windows. Those are simply to provide added light. The garage is a three-car garage. The owners do have a number of boats and other equipment that they wish to store on the site and not take off-site to marinas. So that is the reason or the rationale for the large garage. Ultimately, in terms of responding to the concerns raised by the neighbors, I think that any concerns related to light pollution would be addressed by the township's dark sky bylaw. Any concerns related to overdevelopment or oversized structures, the official plan does allow for a 1% increase in the maximum coverage. This is a 0.6% increase, so it's almost less than half of the maximum that could be requested. And in terms of the road, I understand with the previous owner as well as the current owner, there has been some historic issues with the maintenance of the road. I was speaking with the property manager this morning. I understand that due to the recent rains we've had, there is some gravel that's going down on that road today to repair some washouts. From my perspective, the matters related to the private road are not related to the variance. They're two separate issues. I think that the owners could continue to have discussions with the neighbors to try to resolve some of the road issues, and that would be a separate process from this variance application. So it's my professional opinion that this application meets the 4 tests of a minor variance. It represents good planning. I'd be happy to answer any questions you have. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Allen. Is there anyone else here wishing to speak in support of this application? Anyone in opposition to this application?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you so much to the committee. It's Andrew Fetter. Is it okay for me to speak? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can, sir.
Well, first of all, it's Andrew Federer, 157 Rochester Avenue, Toronto, Ontario, M4N 1P2. Thank you for your time. And as Ms. Gillen noted, she spoke with me on Friday and she was extremely helpful and very responsive to all my questions, and it was very much appreciated. So I won't go over everything, but as noted, I really had 2 issues. One is, as she noted, and as the committee may have seen, this property has been under construction for a considerable period of time, and Hazians have just refused to fix the road. The committee may or may not know they own several properties on this road and another, very large cottage with garage space where they can certainly, I would imagine, park anything they choose to do. I would say the other thing is that, this is a recently, well, not completed yet, but recently considered or almost completed property. It's brand new. The boathouse is brand new. They had to have known the size of those buildings. And so, I find it interesting that, given all that they just didn't plan for a almost 3,500 square foot garage. Lastly, I would say that, the variance being requested is supported by planning, and that the, probability of the committee not approving the application is very low. I would say the application's success is arguably almost certain. I would, however, ask the committee to consider that variances are a privilege, not a right, and that perhaps the committee should take into consideration the broader impact of the application, including requiring some level of consideration for the neighbors. If the property is built as of right without the variance, yes, there will be more construction, but there will be less construction and less materials and less trucks to continue to damage the road. I've not heard from the Hasdians, even though I had asked Ms. Gillen to send them my email in opposition. So I hope that the committee may consider the fact that variances are not a right, but a privilege. And at the very least, ask the owner to give an undertaking to repair the road from Woodruff to Unit 4. I just want the road repaired from Woodruff to their property, now in the spring and upon substantial completion. It's been extremely inconsiderate for the rest of us. And again, I just don't think they should be rewarded for that type of behavior. Thank you so much, and thank you for your consideration.
Thank you very much, Andrew. Is there anyone else here wishing to speak in opposition? No? Okay. Questions from the members? Yes.
Thank you, Chair. Just a comment, it is a private road and we cannot even get involved with that. I know that's a major issue for you, but I just wanted to let you know that we can't consider that.
Yes, Member Quinn.
Yes, it's a planning matter. The road has really been, I've been in and out of it a lot. The road has been terrible all year. And I think that if the fellow is coming forward and having asks, he should have been trying to make the neighbors happy. It's not going to change how how my opinion on this, but just I was speaking to the contractor, I guess, or the general on a non-related matter earlier last week, and I told him that it was an embarrassment to his company, et cetera. And he did tell me that there was gravel and he was going to be working on it. So hopefully that gets done, and it's not up to us to mediate that, but I believe that that is going to be happening.
Any other questions or comments? Moved by Member Brown, second by Member Quinn. Be it resolved that application A 3923 Hassan to construct a one-story garage and a gazebo is hereby approved, with the following variance being granted: to permit a lot coverage of 9,971 square feet, or 10.6% from the 200 feet from the high water mark. This variance is granted as shown on the plan attached to the notice of decision. This approval shall remain in effect for 3 years from the date of decision. Any questions or comments? All those in favor? That's carried.
Thank you, committee. I will relay the comments I've heard today about the road.
Okay, the next application is A 4023 Global Fuels Properties, and that is Ms. Gilgan.
Thank you, Chair Edwards and committee. The next application to be heard is minor variance application A-4023 in the name of Global Fuels Properties, Inc. The subject lands are known municipally as 1107 Elgin House Road. Next slide, please. I would direct committee's attention to the submitted site plan on page 183 of the agenda package. The purpose and effect of this application is to demolish an existing dock and construct a new dock. Next slide. Thank you. Notice of this public hearing under the Planning Act was circulated 10 days in advance of this meeting. One neighboring property owner submitted comments in response to the application, being the neighbor to the immediate south, stating they have absolutely no concern with the proposed changes. I also did receive another email from the neighbor at 1101 Elgin House Road while this meeting has been taking place, also stating they are in favor of the application. Comments were received from the Township's Building Services Division and the Township's Public Works Department with no objections stated. Next slide, please. Staff have prepared a detailed report for committee's consideration and have recommended that the requested minor variance application be approved with the condition that a satisfactory minor variance agreement under section 45, 9.1 and 9.2 of the Planning Act be entered into and registered on title along with securities for attention of vegetation and plantings to maintain and revegetate the shoreline buffer. Staff have no further comments at this time and are happy to answer any questions from committee. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is the owner or the applicant's agent here wishing to speak on this?
Yep. Good morning, Jack Friends of Deconing Group, 3 Armstrong Point Road, Port Carling, Ontario, POB 1J0. Just here to sort of answer any questions that the committee may have. So basically, as Lisa outlined, this is just for like a dock relocation and a covered porch towards the back of the property. And with that, we're sort of shifting the dock to make the actual lakefront view have a total width be narrower, and then try and sort of condense all of the space into one area. So if you have any questions, please let me know.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak in support of this application? Anyone in opposition to this application? Okay, thank you. Questions from the members? Yes.
Just a quick question. So if I'm understanding this correctly, the current dock is 15.2%, and the proposed dock will actually be smaller. Is that correct?
This is lot coverage.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. It's
Correct.
the total lot.
I'm just looking at the note.
Yeah, and they're taking basically what, 27 feet off.
And that presumably the existing dock is grandfathered in or was permitted properly.
Yes. Okay, the planner answer that, please.
Sorry, so through you, Chair. The 15% is the coverage issue, which is not related to the dock width. They're also proposing a small covered porch on the back of the building, but they've taken down a shed and a covered barbecue. So that number has just been reduced by, I believe, 0.1% from what was existing on the property. The dock width is essentially, I believe, the same as what exists today. They're just looking to relocate it. There are some sections of the dock that they're going to extend to meet the existing width because kind of curves in the current iteration of the dock, but the overall width wouldn't be increasing from what exists today.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none. Moved by member Quinn, second by member Stokes. Be it resolved that application A 4023 Global Fuels Properties Inc. to construct a new porch and dock is hereby approved with the following variance being granted: 1, to permit a lot coverage of 3,076 square feet or 15.1%, and to permit a cumulative dock width of 57.9 feet or 38%. These variances are granted as shown on the plan attached to the notice of decision and are subject to the following condition: 1, that a satisfactory minor variance agreement under section 45, 9.1 and 9.2 of the Planning Act be entered into and registered on title along with securities for retention of vegetation and planting to remain and revegetate the shoreline buffer. This approval shall remain in effect for 3 years from the date of decision. Any questions or comments? All those in favor? That's carried. And the next application is A 4223. That's Ms. Gilligan.
Thank you, Chair Edwards and committee. The next application to be heard is minor variance application A 4223 in the name of MacIver. The subject lands are known municipally as 3646 Muskoka Road 169, unit number 18. Next slide, please. I would direct committee's attention to the submitted site plan on page 187 of the agenda package. The purpose and effect of this application is to install a walkout basement, construct a screened room addition, construct a covered sun deck porch, and enlarge a sun deck. Next slide, please. Notice of this public hearing under the Planning Act was circulated 12 days in advance of this meeting, and no submissions from neighbors or members of the public have been received to date. Comments were received from the Township's Building Services Division and the Township's Public Works Department with no objections stated. Next slide, please. Staff have prepared a detailed report for committee's consideration and have recommended that the requested minor variance application be approved with the conditions that the storage building not shown on the submitted site plan be removed and that a satisfactory minor variance agreement under section 45, 9.1 and 9.2 of the Planning Act be entered into and registered on title along with securities for retention of vegetation and plantings to maintain and revegetate the shoreline buffer. Staff have no further comments at this time and are happy to answer any questions from committee. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is the applicant's agent here wishing to speak on this?
Yes.
I know Jessica's there and it's Bill MacIver. Any questions I'm happy to answer, and Jessica's also there.
Okay, thank you. We have someone else there?
I think she's waiting for you to call.
Pardon?
Jessica, the agent, she's waiting for you to.
Okay, yes, and that, go ahead. The agent?
Good morning. It's Jessica Coker, Do North Design and Drafting, 5 River House Lane, Huntsville, Ontario, P1HOJ1. I don't think I have anything further to add to the report or to the recommendation, but I'm here to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you very much. Is there anyone else here who wishes to speak in support? Anyone in opposition? Okay. Questions for the members? Seeing none. Moved by member Bridgman, second by member Grogan Green. Be it resolved that application A 4223 MacIver to construct a screen room and covered sun porch is hereby approved with the following variances being granted. 1, to permit a lot coverage of 2,797 square feet or 10.8% within 200 feet of the high water mark. This variance is granted as shown on the plan attached to the notice of decision and is subject to the following conditions. 1, that a storage building not shown on the submitted site plan be removed, and 2, this satisfactory minor variance agreement under section 45, 9.1 and 9.2 of the Planning Act be entered into and registered on title along with vegetation and planting to maintain and revegetate the shoreline buffer. All those in favor? And that is carried. Okay, now we don't have any other correspondence, no business information. Is there anything else that I have missed? Yes. Mr. Pink.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to quickly ask you, I hope I've noticed that there's a slightly different format of staff reports in the last 2 rounds, as well as different presentation by the planners. You'll see a PowerPoint slide of a few key pictures or key points. And I just was curious as to committee's thoughts on those and whether you feel those changes are appropriate and helpful.
Okay, any comments?
I really like the chart where you list the objections or letters or whatever. It's very helpful. Yeah, and the past planning issues.
And yes,
So I think they're great, and there's been big, I'm 5 years into this, and I think there's a lot of positive changes. One thing is when they're doing pictures, when it's got to do with waterfront stuff like the docks today, if we could have a little better pictures to each side of it, whether it's northeast, east, west, or south, that we can get a better flavor for what's really going on at the next door neighbor's property lines. And then we can probably better make our decisions.
It would be nice if the staff could get their comments in on time, so we don't get a supplementary, not with any letters. I don't need to see that there's no objections, and I have to go through a second set of the agenda.
You mean in the comments?
Yes.
Staff doing a good job.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for that feedback. We'll certainly let Mr. Sharp and I know staff of the request for pictures with respect to the comments. I think we're doing our best to get those out to you, but if they're not received by staff, I guess from agenda publication to the meeting, it could be a challenge, but we'll do our best to continue to get this to you as quickly as possible.
One of the other things too, when we get justification reports from planners, they're doing a presentation. That should be with the agenda. If they're late getting in, then that's their problem.
So just if I could clarify, I think when planning justification reports are submitted with an application, we have been attaching that to the agenda. Are you referring to the PowerPoint presentation?
No, I'm saying planners and that coming in late and handing it, and then we get the justification report with it. I think there was 2 in the last one there, if you check it.
Okay, we can look into that.
Is there anything else at all that you had, David? I see we have the bylaw officer here. Did he want to make a comment on anything, or just know where to sit for today? Okay.
I have a question then.
Yeah.
To the bylaw officer. So in the case where we approved, sort of not up to us to approve it, but it was part of, I guess it was a variance related to something else, but the drawings of the garage were there. And it was pretty clear that it looked a lot like a sleeping accommodation, but we were assured that it was just for storage. And there were, picture windows. And if the neighbors see that the lights are on and people are coming and going and they report it, what happens?
Through the chair. So in that situation, if someone wants to file a report with the bylaw division, we can certainly investigate. I will say that that type of situation is a little bit more difficult for us to gather evidence because it's inside of a building. So we can't enter into buildings by law. So, we take the information that we get on site and through the person that's made the report and come to a determination and work forward from there on the investigation.
So do you have to give advance notice that you're coming, or can you just surprise them with a surprise visit as a bylaw officer?
Through the chair, we don't have to give notice to owners that we're attending a property for an investigation.
So, Mr. Kennedy, is that by law that we can't go into the building, or do other municipalities allow that or get around that, or whatever you want to call it?
So through the chair, the legislation under the Municipal Act, there's 3 different types of legislation that we have our rights to entry from: the Municipal Act, the Planning Act, and the Building Code Act. So depending on which situation we're in, if it's property standards matter, obviously we're going under the Building Code. If it's a zoning issue, it's planning. And then if it's a regulatory bylaws, through the Municipal Act. Through all 3 acts, we are prohibited from entering any building that is being used as habitable space without prior consent of the owner. So, in a sense, if we had a situation where there is a claim that the top story of a garage is being used as habitable space, and we ask the owner if we can enter because it's not supposed to be used as habitable space, we could technically use that against them as far as evidence purposes go. Because if they're not going to allow us to come in, then we could use the analogy or determine that it's habitable space, because otherwise we would be allowed to be let in. Best practice for municipal law enforcement is to just simply not enter buildings whatsoever unless you have prior consent from the owner, just to ensure that there are no future issues. But by law, that's what it states.
Any other questions? Seeing there's no other business. Moved by member Brown, second by member Stokes, be it resolved that Committee of Adjustment meeting adjourned at 11:36 a.m. All those in favor? That is carried. Well, thank you, everyone.